viewers, we're back again with our guest, Amowie Imaswe Izodua. And right now he's going to be analyzing this very interesting story. I find it really, really nice. An ancient keeper in Benin Kingdom, and the name is Ughoron. Am I correct?
Ughoron.
Ughoron, the ancient keeper of Benin Kingdom. Yeah. So let's hear directly from the horse's mouth. All right, to you, Izodua, nice having you once again on Nebo TV, and we'd like you to do a critical analysis of this ancient keeper in Benin Kingdom.
Yeah, what is most interesting for me to talk about the Ughoron is like, it defines me. This topic is like one topic that is really very interesting. It's like something I like to talk about every single day. Now, a lot of persons have been asking me, what does Ughoron mean? Like, everything about me has been Ughoron lately.
Yeah.
All right. I have a company called Ughoron Consults. All right. I'm having a filmmaking production that is going to be called Ughoron as well.
Wow.
And why Ughoron? I feel that Ughoron is Izodua, and Izodua is Ughoron. The reason is because of what the Ughoron people represent in the old Benin. The Benin society, well planned, one of the greatest things that God gave to us as a people, that I keep hammering, its organization. The Benins of old had a foresight. They understood that they are going to have an ancient civilization that will be envied all over the world. So they stationed some very wise people of the land to keep the events of the land for the future generation. And they call them Ughoron. Ughoron means the heavenly people. It is a concept of who they represent, how wise they were. They were the wisest people. It doesn't matter what your background was, whether you're from the royal line, whether you're from the noble house, whether you're from the commoner, it doesn't matter. Irrespective of where you are located in the vast kingdom, or Igodomigo as it was then, in as far that you are wise in presiding over affairs of a particular locality of the people, you will choose to be part of that guild. To me, I believe it was the first guild that was ever created by any king of Benin. Now, they were created not during the days of the Oba of Benin. It was created during the earliest eras of the Ogiso. They were charged with one function: the preserver of the history of the land. And that is why I call them the ancient keepers. Their duty was to keep our history and pass it from one generation to another, in terms of storytelling, in terms of dances, in all dynamism. It becomes the bastion at which every other gate started to spring out from. Because if you're talking about the Igun Guild was meant to use the artwork through bronze and brass casting to keep the history of the Benin. You're talking about the Besama. They were charged with using the woodworks, the ivory carvings or the wood carvings to preserve the history. Then the Ughoron became the base stock at which every other guilds
came out from.
They were very relevant. They performed the function great libraries of all over the world might perform, the modern day library concept. What the library is meant to preserve the history of a particular people, the particular race. What the function of the present day library is what the Ughoron was to the Benin people. But unfortunately, the guild went into extinction. I read about it in the works of Professor um, OSB, Omoege, of the Ughoron people, and it was also reflected in the works that was edited by Chief Sam Igbe, the Asher of Benin, from birth to death, the Ughoron peoples. When I went to study more about the Ughoron people, I fell in love with it. And to be frank, I feel that the onus falls on me and some other young lads to recreate the function that Ughoron had. Some people will argue that the Ihogbe still perform the function of the Ughoron. No. The Ihogbe do not perform the function of Ughoron because the Ughoron people were meant to keep the history of the land. The Ihogbe are preserver of the history of the royal line.
Okay.
They preserve the history of the palace. They are the royal history keepers. But Ughoron was the entire history. They kept the history of the entire people, of the entire land. So it is what is missing in the Benin history. It is what is missing in the modern day Benin society that I feel that it has to be recreated. And that is why in recent times I have become the embodiment of Ughoron. An embodiment to find a way, if not now, sometime in the future, to recreate the function that the Ughoron had in the old Benin society 2,000 years ago when they were being established, or 1,000 years ago when they went into extinction. One couldn't tell whether they went into extinction, they were abolished, or but what one could tell that they were no longer people who kept the history. Our history were not kept in the fables of the thinking ideas of the Ughoron. It was no longer kept by humans, it was not kept by acts, by works. Alright. So it is time for we to now recreate. We now have more advanced technology in the modern time to make the function of the Ughoron more simpler. Alright. But it has to be recreated. So the Ughoron is a guild that I strongly believe that will help shaping the society of Benin in the future. Because right now we are at the verge of either getting our history correct or getting it wrong. I went to see Dr. Isaac Hagosai a month ago. He said the generations of those who really know the history is almost practically fading away. We are the last generation. I had hoped and prayed that some Benin people pick interest in Benin history. When our time passes, we might not be able to get people who will keep the history. Then suddenly you appeared from nowhere and decided to start advocating. And I told him that I'm not the only person. Maybe because I'm close to you. They're all very bright lads. And it was like, you have to get everybody together to ensure that the history of our land is properly preserved. And that is why he's an 89 years old now. He will be 90 next month.
Wow.
That is why he gave me an assignment recently of all the records of old people. Almost all of them have died. I think all of them have died that he recorded in the 80s to early 90s. About over 75 tapes. Alright? And that he wanted me to have a copy of it. Because there was a time when Oba Nekwe, Ne Yedo, when someone who was not supposed to enter Benin entered Benin. Yeah, I did about 42 minutes video or audio on it. He himself couldn't remember the story. But when that matter happened, I had asked a lot of questions. Nobody seems to remember the story until he went to his archival materials and now brought a recorded tape. They had recorded 1997 of one of the Oha of Ewo Mori. It gave me that tape. When I played it, I got the full story of why Oba Nekwe Nine Lido. So the concept is that the Ughoron served as a preservation of our history, and that is what I'm trying.
Wow, that's so great.
Revive.
That's so great. So you could just your group, the great descendants of Benin, you can ascribe the Ughoron as something like that.
Yes, yes. I think to a very large extent, Association of Great Benin Descendants, we've done an incredible job. What do I mean incredible job? We've done an incredible job in terms of using history to identify all Benin descendants all over the world. Now, we know our people, alright? I'm aware Igbos are trying to drag all the Edo people in Delta, all the Edo people in Bayelsa, all the Edo people in River State, most especially the Ukwere, Ekpe, Ogba. Alright, we've gone past that stage. Or gone are the days when I used to argue with most of them on Facebook. I don't argue with them anymore. You know why? Because we've gone past the stage where we now have to argue. I've gone past the stage where I have to now argue with any of these people about whether Ikure people are Benin. We've gone past the stage because I've gone to the stage where I've met with authorities of these ethnic groups. They are kings, they are elites. We have had a roundtable discussion. We've discussed on their ancestry to Benin. So I don't need social media to validate the Ikwe history. I don't need social media Iboma to validate Ekpe Benin ancestry. So that is why I don't argue anymore on Facebook. If I want to take a practical step on what will benefit me or benefit our people, most importantly benefit our people, I go to the source. If I feel that these people are historically connected to the Benin people, I don't start arguing with one young boy on social media. I just go to the source, the community, the territory, the land, and we'll go and meet the elites, we'll go and meet the king, we'll go and meet the historians, and they'll be able to validate if it is true or not. Once they are validated, it is true, then I don't have to come to social media to start arguing with someone who probably might never have been to his hometown.
I get that. Alright, thank you so much, Imaso. This is really a short one but very powerful. I hope the Benins out there are ready to preserve the culture, because if I were to be a Benin, but anyway, being a Yoruba guy, I think it's connected to being Benin, so I should be proud of.
I think, let me quickly say this. I think a lot of persons have mistook my vehement approach to Yoruba people as tribalism. I want to use this to make that correction. I'm not tribalistic. A lot of people have mistook my vehement approach to the Yoruba people as being tribalistic. Let me make it clear now that I'm not tribalistic. I don't hate Yoruba people. I have been in the midst of Yoruba people where I feel that my history was torn apart. And I sworn by God and my ancestors that all through my life, in my lifetime, that historical correction will be made. I do not care if anybody has to approve or whether it's correct or not. What I'm concerned about is to revolutionize the minds of the Benin people to understand the history as being told by our ancestors. Those who really saw when some of these events happened and passed this information from one generation to another. Take it or leave it. Benin has one of the most orally documented history in Africa. So I will not take one history that one person told me from Osun State or from Ondo State or from Oyo State as against what I was told by my people in Ondo State. And that becomes the basics. I believe talk your own, make I talk my own. Not me say with a quarrel or with hate body.
Yeah.
To prove your historical point, and I prove my historical point. That's your perspective. This is my perspective. We don't have to be rude about it. So, and I think the viewers know that.
Oh yeah. Alright, so thank you very much, Amuye Imaso Izodua. Thank you for this short briefing, and I also want to say thank you for preserving the Benin culture. It's a great work so far. Alright, so we've come to the end of the story of the Asian keeper in Benin City. So, see you next time on Nebo TV. God bless you, and God bless the great Benin Kingdom.
Amen.